It is the county seat for McLean County, total population 9,000. It is an agricultural area, largely conservative, overwhelmingly a collective of individualists, historically the grassroots of America. The name of the newspaper editor is the McLean County News, the only newspaper in McLean County. It is not often a painless job.
When you say McLean County News and Landon Wills, they're one and the same. We don't always agree with him. Sometimes we'd like to walk up and hit him right in the face.
Landon is a nonconformist. In the summertime, he even wears shorts, to the detriment of the surrounding medium.
I think the majority of the people enjoy the paper, appreciate the paper, and for the same reason they appreciate Mr. Wills. After all, he is the paper.
If we were left without the McLean County News, I can't imagine what it would be like.
But if this paper ceased to exist, I wouldn't cry about it.
He probes old sores and he makes new ones. Some of us would like to beat the hell out of him, frankly. And yet again, we can't help thinking that he deserves a pat on the back. Frankly, with all my disagreement with Landon, I think he's an excellent newspaper editor.
There are only 2,000 country newspapers left in America. They're a way of life. They're a part of country life. But perhaps they're a vanishing breed.
Bell and Howell Close-Up, a penetrating look at today. Brought to you by the expanding worlds of Bell and Howell. In photography, capturing the things we can see. Through Bell and Howell CEC, recording things we cannot see. And Bell and Howell Ditto, serving the world with office equipment, supplies, and systems. All from Bell and Howell.
Calhoun, Kentucky stands on the banks of the Green River. It is the center of a farming area. Its 20-odd stores sell all the things that farmers need: groceries, hardware, seeds, spare parts. Most of these stores have been in business a long, long time. Calhoun is a quiet town. Back during the Civil War, a couple of battles were fought nearby. In 1937, the Green River flooded. Otherwise, it leads a quiet existence. There are a few new industrial projects. For instance, a navigation lock on the Green River, a new potato chip factory, and best of all, nearby, a new hospital, modern, bright, and very efficient. The county newspaper and its editor, Landon Wills, are generally credited with the existence of these new plants, and that is about as much credit as some people in Calhoun give Landon Wills. The McLean County News publishes every Friday. The balance of the week goes into its preparation, 7 pages of county news. There is never any problem in finding items to fill the columns. It is the only newspaper published in the county. Out of a population of 9,000, 2,200 subscribe, and it is estimated that it has at least 6,000 readers. It is a distinguished newspaper. It has amassed more than 50 professional awards. The McLean County News is a family enterprise. Landon Wills is editor and publisher. He is also typesetter, compositor, reporter, advertising manager, and editorial writer. Each of his 6 young sons works with him, mostly part-time, and they do all sorts of jobs. As journalism, one would call it a success. It is read by almost everyone in the county. It is the symbol of identification for all its readers. It gives them the recognition the large city dailies do not. It deals with their life as they know it.
We had 42 in Sunday school and 50 for preaching service. The Reverend Charles Woodward in Sacramento brought our message.
McLean and Hopkins County Coon Hunters Association held their annual coon supper at the Sacramento School lunchroom Saturday night, January the 19th. To whet the appetite of 350 to 400 coon hunters, wives, children, and friends, were 45 barbecued coons, 4 pork shoulders, salads, baked beans, pies, cakes, and many other dishes too numerous to mention.
Mrs. Woody Abney is sick with tonsillitis. Oh, here's one from Mayo Hill. Surely, surely we're living in the days God spoke about. He said in the last days people would be lovers of themselves more than God. Today we see old men turn against their wives who have been so good and true and have raised a large family, take up with another, and pretend they're living for God. God doesn't approve of things like that. That is why he prepared a hell. There's where they will go, too.
The youngest of Landon Wills' boys deliver newspapers. It is their contribution to the family enterprise. The McLean County News is a successful newspaper, but hardly a sound economic operation. It cannot support its editor and his family. For this reason, Mrs. Landon Wills continues to teach school, and her earnings make up the difference between the family's needs and the newspaper's losses. She does this cheerfully, both because she's happy to contribute to her husband's life work and because she believes that it is important for McLean County to have a newspaper. She feels this even though the life of a newspaper editor is not always smooth.
Probably the biggest problem that I have in editing the paper and in writing news stories is deciding what to print and what not to print.
When Landon has written a controversial editorial, he sometimes gets cold feet, and he comes home and he wonders how the people are going to take it. And he discusses all phases of, should I have done this? Should I have said that?
In a small community like this, things are a little more intimate than they are in larger communities. Things are more personal. And nearly everything that we publish in the paper, there is someone who would rather not have it in the paper for reasons that you would never dream of until you hear them.
It seems, though, that the things that are the most controversial to him, in his mind, stir up the least trouble. It's the ones that are so innocent that seem to stir up so much trouble.
Within a 15-mile radius of Calhoun, the county seat, are the other 6 towns of McLean County. Each town has its own personality. There are inter-town rivalries. Publishing one newspaper for all 7 towns is a sensitive operation. Take the case of the House of Prostitution, which Landon Wills reported had been closed by the police in the town of Livermore, only 9 miles away from Calhoun. This is County Judge Laverne Willis of Calhoun.
I think he causes trouble. He prints things in the Livermore section of the paper, again Livermore, about a house of prostitution and things that I don't think existed, and making light of Livermore, it being in the city block of Livermore in the main square, and he was making light as Livermore knew what was going on and approved of it.
I felt like that he, at 2 different times, had given Livermore rather a dirty smear on the front page of his paper, which didn't sit well with me or the people of our town. At one time, it was in regard to a rough house or a house of question.
I have no issue with Landon on the reports which he made in regard to a disorderly house which was in operation in Livermore. He made it a major news item. I don't think it was worthy of that.
My sister-in-law, I had been giving, she and my brother, the subscription for several years. He died, and I continued saying to her, because she was formerly from around here and knew a lot of people. Well, when this came up, I've decided that I wouldn't go any longer because I didn't think she would appreciate it. And now I just buy the paper when I think there's something in it that she would enjoy and mail it to her. I'd rather do that than to have her have to look at something that from home that's not pleasing or pleasant to read.
In order to get coverage and subscriptions, there should be a little controversy going on in the thing. Well, he steps on somebody's toes. How he's doing that. Well, he's published it with that in mind.
He tells a way it does happen. And this truth hurts.
He treats the people up there in Livermore just about the same as he treats anybody else. In fact, I've never seen him show partiality to anybody. And some people in Livermore just don't like the truth.
There was a lot of people offended in Livermore by him doing that one trick. A lot of people offended.
But then on one page, the editorial page, that's different. Whereas in the news part of the paper, we are pretty strictly limited to what happens in McLean County. On the editorial page, I try to act as if my limits were humanity. Anything that affects the human race, I think, is fit subject for comment on the editorial page.
His pointed editorials make the local people form opinions that they would not otherwise be able to do so.
We all tend to be interested only in our little puddle, our little niche.
You must remember that we're Southerners, and we have certain traditions here.
This section of Kentucky is extremely, we'll say, clannish. One has to move in and be there quite a while before he is really accepted as one of the community.
They want to leave everything as it was, as they remembered it when they were children. I mean, now they'll take modern conveniences or anything like that, but you try to change their thinking a little bit, and they don't want that. This area seems to be more isolated than other areas in the way the people feel.
I say he's got real guts, because he doesn't take the popular issue in every instance.
In the past presidential election between President Kennedy and Richard Nixon, Landon was highly criticized for his stand with Kennedy, on the Catholic issue.
I myself am a Baptist, and I understand that Landon is a Methodist. And I was for Kennedy, much for the same reasons that Landon was. I thought he was a good president, and I could see nothing one way or the other that the religious ain't got anything to do with it.
I supported Kennedy as candidate for president because he was a Democratic nominee and because I thought that he was the best qualified man for president. But it's well known, I think, that there is considerable religious prejudice in Kentucky, and it's strong in McLean County, and there was a great deal of criticism because the McLean County News was supporting a Catholic for president. I'm sure that there was more objection, more criticism, that I had more trouble over that issue than any issue I know of. One thing that interested me was that a member of the Baptist church told me that the Baptists were holding prayer meeting for me. And probably I needed praying for, but in a way I felt that they needed somebody to pray for them too.
The religious issue, as Landon handled it, was, well, I hardly know exactly what terms to use. I want to be kind and tactful. Personally, I felt that it was handled the wrong way. I found myself, being a Baptist minister and being Southern Baptist along with it, wearing the tag of bigot quite often when I felt it was unjustified. I do not think that I was bigoted. I think that Mr. Kennedy has the right to be president regardless of his religion, and I would be willing to lay down my life for him to have that right. Personally, I feel the county went Republican because of the very strong position that he took and the position of the paper.
I was told that the pastor of the Christian church was going to preach about me. So I went to church that Sunday, and actually he didn't preach about me by name, but he did make the statement that you couldn't depend on the newspapers of this country because they were operated by communists.
Landon is a sincere Democrat, certainly, and he is extremely interested in the success of the Democratic Party, but I don't think that he would treat an issue in a biased way. For instance, I might say that I think that if Nixon had been a Catholic, he would have spoken out just as strongly to oppose the fact that the religious issue was brought into the campaign.
And so the problem of day to day and week to week is picking out the things that are really news and writing them correctly, and then having the guts to publish them, even though you know there is someone who'd rather not see them in print.
Given the problems, perhaps it is small wonder that country newspapers are a diminishing industry, their editors a vanishing breed.
We will return to A Vanishing Breed after this word from Bell and Howell.
Anywhere and everywhere in McLean County, people discuss Landon Wills. In a way, it forms a happy bond between newspaper and reader. The newspaper fulfills a service and a need. The editor provides a subject for endless comment. Right across the river from the county seat is Rumsey, Kentucky. Most afternoons, King Baker and his friends gather at Johnson's grocery store in Forum.
Dave, I don't read the McLean County News anymore. Landon and I don't agree in politics. He made a false statement one time about Abraham Lincoln, that he was the cause of the Civil War. Well, I refuted that statement and told him that the Civil War was started to the South when they, at Charleston Harbor, South Carolina, the shore batteries fired upon Fort Sumter, April the 12th, 1861. Well, he printed my letter, and when the paper came out, my letter was the most debauched specimen I ever encountered. Whole lines, whole sentences were just a jargon of letters, and letters alone, and that destroyed all the thought. I asked him about that, why he did that, and he reprinted it, but to no avail. The sense of the letter was lost. And up till then, I didn't realize that a man could sully himself to fall so low, but he did. The specimen of man is either a man or a rat. So I'll let you make your own inference.
Some of the people that object to Landon's editorials are the whiskey heads and the sore heads of our community. Other folks like the editorials that he writes.
Landon Wills is the most exasperating son of a gun I ever saw. He irritates us, he infuriates us, and yet underneath we sort of admire the man.
I think he should stick to local issues because we pick up national things over television, radio, and our outside newspapers. And Friday afternoon when I get in and pick up the McLean County News, I like to read about McLean County and McLean County people, McLean County issues, politics, things of that nature.
Landon is just using his opinions and his thoughts in the Mississippi crisis and the presidential race, all other things that happen all over the United States. I think it's a small county paper, and I think we need the paper if it was operated right.
For example, some of our neighboring papers have gotten rid of 2 or 3 school superintendents. Put the dogs after them, so to speak, when they didn't live up to what he thought they should. And he's never done that type of thing.
He tries to bring about action, and I think this is where he gets his criticism, because we don't always want to act.
We all resist change, and Landon tends to prod us into making certain changes, and sometimes maybe we don't want to move as swiftly as he would like to have us move.
He probes old sores and he makes new ones. Some of us would like to beat the hell out of him, frankly.
People pick up the paper, they curse Landon Wills, they say he's wrong. I think they would miss him if they suddenly woke up some Friday morning and they didn't get the McLean County News.
But if this paper ceased to exist, I wouldn't cry about it.
He's different. He's bound to be. He thinks differently.
Landon is a nonconformist outside of politics.
He doesn't believe in television. He doesn't even have a television set.
He doesn't believe in drinking Coca-Colas.
In the summertime, he even wears shorts to the detriment of the surrounding medium.
It'd be a drab world if everyone wanted to wear a black suit, a black tie, black hat.
If my legs were not uniform, I wouldn't display them before the public.
To really understand Landon Wills, I think you have to remember that he isn't a native McLean County. He's out of Henry County, the heart of the bluegrass, some 250 miles or so from here. Now, Landon has been here 16 years, but he has never really become one of us. One reason for this, I suppose, that Landon is a relatively highly educated man, a master's degree, I think it is. And the average fellow here, 6th, 7th, or 8th grade education on an average level. And some people refer to Landon as an educated fool. I think that's the difference as the two people. They've never been able to really reach each other.
But it would seem that Landon Wills and his readers do reach each other, even if they do not agree. Certainly, they face the same problem, a way of life sliding into disuse. In this day of urban living and mechanization, the country town is undeniably dwindling. During the past 20 years, McLean County has lost 25% of its population. Its merchants do far less business, buy less advertising, and this is reflected in the newspaper's income. Would conformity with the county's many preferences and prejudices really solve any of Landon Wills' economic problems?
I've been here for 16 years now. The McLean County News is not successful in a financial sense. The primary reason is that Calhoun and McLean County are just not large enough and don't have enough population and enough business to support a good newspaper. Actually, I wouldn't have been able to get along for this 16 years if it hadn't been for the fact that my wife, Eileen, teaches school for a living.
Landon tells everyone that I have to work at something to supplement the income from the paper, and that is true. However, I like to teach, and so I don't mind doing it at all. I refuse to let the attitude of the people bother me too much. I realize that they will soon get over any ill feelings that they might have for Landon or for me. And oftentimes, though, people refuse to speak to me on the streets or in the stores, but I speak on just the same, and sooner or later they come around and begin to speak again. But it isn't too often that they take out their bad feelings on me. It's usually directed at Landon instead of me.
I've often wondered and have said to Landon, why do you stay in a small community where you don't even make a living when you could get a job on a large newspaper and be a crusader to your heart's content?
Sometimes when I get an offer of a good job someplace else or hear of some other attractive situation, I wonder if I shouldn't try to sell out and go to some greener pastures.
Oh, I definitely like living in Calhoun. And every time we even considered moving anywhere else, the children just raise the roof.
I've pretty well decided that I'll probably spend the rest of my years here going along week after week, putting out another newspaper, trying to make it as good as I can to serve the people of McLean County.
Next Friday, there will be another issue of McLean County's news. Next week, 2,000 country newspapers will publish. Later, there will be less, and later, even less. Caught in a world of bigness, the small find it hard to live. One can only regret that these brave individualists are a vanishing breed.
And now, a final word from Bell and Howell. Bell and Howell Close-Up, a penetrating look at today. Brought to you by the expanding worlds of Bell and Howell. In photography, capturing the things we can see. Through Bell and Howell CEC, recording things we cannot see. And Bell and Howell Ditto, serving the world with office equipment, supplies, and systems. All from Bell and Howell.
This has been a special projects presentation of 8